Hey Internet, Adrian here for Digital Dojos. And if you're anything like me, at any given time, you have a bunch of random tech projects or things that you have in mind on your backlog and projects that you just never get to. Whether it's things like digitizing your physical media, finding a use for this Intel NUC that I've been meaning to turn into something cool like a Proxmox server or something of that nature, upgrading the home media PC, turning this iPad into a smart home controller, getting and making sure I download the Nintendo eShop store, or items in it, I should say, before the closure, which is actually happening tonight. You get the idea. There's a lot of random stuff that tends to pile up, and the difference between me back in the day when I did content creation for a living, these tech projects, these items, these to-do lists, were things that I would often get to take advantage of and make content out of, right? The formula was simple. I had something that I wanted to do, I would research, get the things needed to do it, I'd make a video on it. And that video would then go up. I'd potentially make some money off of those things and put food on the table, so on and so forth, right? Like, it was this cycle of, like, I have this thing I'm really into, I get to make content out of it, that content feeds my living. Whereas nowadays, I have a lot of different things going on, and I have businesses and other things that I'm responsible for outside solely of content creation. So not a lot of that stuff gets done, and I still love and am passionate about technology. I'm quite literally surrounded by it physically and just in my day-to-day work and life. So by all means, there's a lot of things I've been meaning to get done. This video is me bringing some of that accountability back. I want to sit down, document a lot of that stuff that I have going on around me, some of the stuff I just listed, and just get it out there, like get it on paper and dump it so I can then organize it and tackle it appropriately. Therein, I also want to take you, the viewers, and community's feedback as to some of the stuff that you may be interested in or really want to see or am curious about. That way, I can kind of gear and prioritize the content that I have to come in the future. So this is a little bit of a different style of video, a little bit more vlog-like. I want to get just my thoughts out here and document them. And then from there, with the time that we have left, we'll see what we can tackle in the immediate today. And then future content is surely to come. So hope you enjoy. Let's dive right into it. All right, so we're changing the approach here. While I originally was just sitting here rambling of things that I needed to get on this list and looking around and trying to think through long-term to-do list items here in the office and studio, I just ended up sitting down and getting it all onto this list here in Notion, which I'm using to kind of drive all of this. Now, the idea here is that I while this list is already a lot in itself, I don't want it to get any longer in the moment because I think in its nature with to-do lists, like the longer they get, the more daunting they can be, and then you just end up never getting to any of it. So I kind of wanted to use this as a stopping point. But yeah, got some items here in the immediate, and just to kind of quickly review and rattle some of these off, like I mentioned, I want to make sure I remind myself actually tonight in the immediate to buy some of these 3DS Wii U games I've been meaning to get before the eShop close. I have this Intel NUC PC here that I want to turn into something, whether it's a VM, Proxmox, Linux, etc. I want to physically move and upgrade my home lab, which is sitting right behind me. It's always in these videos, as you can see here. This network rack that's housing all of my smart home controllers, NAS, UniFi setup. I've been meaning to actually relocate that to another portion of the desk because I use this so much for a workshop area that when I'm sitting there, I physically can't, like, my legs don't fit under the desk because all the stuff is down there. So that's something that needs to happen in tandem with eventually upgrading some of the stuff in there. I'm going to do a sanity check of all my retro consoles, all the stuff that's always here behind me and is the typical backdrop. I've been collecting a lot of these over the last couple years, and a lot of them I've bought in working condition as far as I'm concerned, but I don't know because I haven't hooked up a lot of them. While I bought them for display and to have for the collection, I didn't really get to test a lot of them, as well as kind of sanity check and clean some of the used ones that I didn't get from like a store, for example. I might have just got it from like a flea market or another seller. I've been meaning to go through those. This is a much bigger project, but hand in hand with the retro games, I've been meaning to digitize and make a digital inventory of my games I've been collecting. So often when I'm out and about collecting and buying buying more games, I sometimes forget about the things that I have because the collection has grown so much in the last couple of years. So meaning to kind of find a great way to digitize that. If some of you have some recommendations, I know some people do spreadsheets. I know there's some apps out there. Would love to kind of hear your thoughts for those who are in the kind of retro gaming collection scene. Upgrades, hardware upgrades. I have 2 Mac Pros that have been sitting here for the longest time. These are 2 old school Mac Pro towers. These were some of my favorite designs back in the day when the Mac Pro first came out. And these towers are from '06, and I got 2 of them separately from different clients who were going to throw them away. And I've been meaning to kind of pop them open, see what's in it, see what's working, what's not, and see if I can consolidate everything and kind of upgrade one of them to the max capabilities here in 2023, just for the fun of it. Same note, I have a 2013 iMac that I also have sitting in the living room that is just collecting dust, and I want to see what we can kind of repurpose out of that. In that same vein, my living room media PC that I use for like VR, some light home media server stuff, I've been just meaning to upgrade it in general. It's my old gaming PC, and really kind of give it new life and really have it be that kind of centerpiece of the home entertainment when it comes to the living room. I want it to be like an emulator. I want it to handle things like Jellyfin or like some Plex server media content creation or content serving, and just serve as an all-around media PC for the living room. Backing up and digitizing all of my media, both on and off-site. This is just a much bigger project to tackle, not something that's going to happen all at once. But I've been thinking more and more of this, making sure and trying to create a better backup system of my content and data. I love archiving my data. Since I've been on the internet since 2006 uploading videos, I have a long archive of history of content that I can always reference, and I think that's always cool to be able to do that. But I also want to expand that to like my physical media. I have these JVC tapes. These recorder tapes from my old JVC cameras that would record to these little mini cassette tapes that I can't even watch the content that's on here currently because I don't have anything that supports this like a player. But I do want to buy. I know they have solutions for you to digitize this stuff nowadays. So I want to kind of come up with that or use a capture card to get some of this media off and digitize. That way I can store it for years to come. But again, that's just such a massive project because I want to digitize things like my video games. I want to digitize ROM backups of cassettes, CDs, DVDs, and Blu-rays, things of that nature, just to kind of have all that stored in the cloud. And then a couple other maintenance stuff. Getting my home studio recording set up in order is just like a task for efficient operations of recordings and whatnot, and getting some new hardware in place here. Maintenance and fixing some home automations on my home assistant server is something I've been meaning to do for the longest time, and just some quality of life updates. And yeah, other things like organizing and storing my vinyl record setup and coming up with a better solution for that. That's kind of the list that we're working with right now. So with that in mind, take a look at this, see and look through this and see what you think, things that you might be interested, drop it down in the comments below, things that you might want to see like some videos on in the future. What I'm going to do next is sit down and kind of go in and add some relevant info to each of this, just so that when I do sit down to ultimately, let's say, do the Mac Pro upgrade video, I already kind of know and have a reference before I go to shoot that video and do that project. What's all the hardware I need to order? What's the RAM I can get? What's the top CPU that this thing can handle? Kind of just do some research on the back end here, kind of get all that into place here, just so that when I do sit down to actually do a lot of this stuff, we're a bit more prepared. So yeah, I guess this is where the time lapse happens. Okay, so got a lot more detail into some of these tasks to kind of better set me up for success down the road. That's what this whole idea is here, and kind of get the ball rolling and just an idea of things I'll need for potential projects in the future. But with that, like I noted, I want to keep this momentum going and see what we can kind of do in the next couple hours and knock out in the immediate. I think, though, I kind of want to start with a clean surface and just kind of clean up the environment around me a little bit, and then jump into some of these projects that we can get a head start on, today. All right, so I'm potentially thinking about trying to move the home lab over today, potentially. But first, I got to kind of just clean up this whole area. It was much worse before, but behind my kind of backdrops here, I have a pile of boxes of products that I recently unboxed, I've yet to review, things of that nature, so I just kind of want to clear up this whole space to start. Okay, so here's the thing. That space is now kind of cleared up, and I'm just kind of thinking about how I maneuver this whole setup over. It's on some furniture risers just to kind of keep it off the carpet here, but I'm gonna definitely have to disconnect some cables in the back because a lot of the cables run around the center leg of the desk. So in order to kind of move this whole thing over, I'm gonna have to kind of disconnect some of the Ethernet cables that are feeding the rack right now. So the original thought of it going here was that it was the most accessible if I needed it, and I would be able to just easily access the door and things of that nature. To be honest, I rarely have to go into the actual like cabinet. A lot of stuff I can just manage on the cloud or remote, so I rarely have to open the door. So thinking whether or not I want to just orient it like right here in this little nook, just push it right here so it's adjacent with this drawer right here, and I can just access it this way if I need to, keeping in mind that the power I set up is right there. So just kind of deciding how I want to orient it, or if I just want to kind of move it over here to the side, giving me some leg room, and also moving these two Mac Pros out where I'd have more space when I'm operating right here. All right, so for now, I opted just to put it right here. I was able to move everything and reroute the wires without having to disconnect anything other than turning off the NAS temporarily. But other than that, we'll see how it sits here. Other than like being tucked in there further, if I feel like eventually I want to just reorient it, we'll go that route. Still do have one more cable I need to. It's like the main power supply cable that I would have to disconnect everything. So I'm just gonna see how I like it as is. This does give me much more like actual leg room when I'm sitting right here, and I still have a lot of room to shift it over to the left if needed. But for now, at least just in the base level of moving it, yeah, we're looking good. And the one item I was talking about earlier that I can now look to check off the list, for those of you who don't know, in the gaming scene or retro gaming scene, the 3DS and specifically the Wii U, their online stores, the eShops that you use to buy games, will be shutting down, I believe sometime tonight, if I imagine probably closer to midnight, meaning the digital store that you use to buy titles, get DLCs, things of that nature. These are all still up until this point. Until today, you could still get titles. There's even new releases still coming out for some things like the 3DS. But that will all cease after tonight. So it's been heavily recommended to get a lot of titles, get some free games, get some DLCs that you can only get, or get some eShop exclusives. Because, of course, look, the 3DS cartridges will still be around. Some prices will probably spike up after the shutdown of the eShop. But essentially, all the games that you can get through the eShop will no longer be downloadable. If you own the games or buy the games prior to tonight, then you'll continue to have access to them. But I did one of two things. One, I added some balance to my eShop account through just my Nintendo Switch or my Nintendo account, because you can't add it directly on the 3DS anymore, to buy some titles, get some free games as well, things that I can only get up until tonight. But I also modded this 3DS, as you can see here. If I go back, sorry, home button doesn't want to work right now, but for whatever reason, am I stuck in here? Let's see. To go out to the home there you go. On my home screen, my 3DS is now successfully modded, so went through that whole tutorial to get everything working here. That's great because it's going to extend the life of the 3DS and expand the capabilities of it in general, but also allows you to back up your titles and keep those titles that you may have or bought or what have you. That way you can have it for the longevity, right? When Nintendo does things like this, and if they ever were to shut down the servers fully, and you weren't able to download the games and DLCs that you bought, you can at least back them up and do all that great stuff to preserve those things and, again, extend the life. You can just see some of the titles I have here now on the 3DS, including some physical cartridge games I was fortunate enough to pick up in recent years. But yeah, that is the other thing I gotten done. So 3DS is modded. Wii U is just the last one left to also get the mod in place. And kind of go through the store and see what's left that I can grab.
The ghosts and keep them away from.
Dang, even got live streams going where people are awaiting the imminent death of the shop here.
incredible with these 3D backgrounds. If you've ever not played it with 3D on, if you have a 2DS,
And it was only on the Wii U's eShop. So if you're a fan of shoot 'em up games, you're probably well familiar with this game. But in case you, for some reason,
All right, and with it being about 11 p.m. here at night, the eShops have officially closed. I got some last-minute purchases in, added a little bit more funds to my eShop account. Ended up picking some games. Mainly, I was looking for like deals, and I was watching some videos on stuff that was sold digitally. That while there's still physical releases of it that you can get, the pricing on things are just way higher. An example being, I bought the Metroid Trilogy, even though I know they just came out their Metroid Remaster. That's 3 games for $20 on the eShop for the Nintendo Wii via the Wii U kind of emulator. But normally, if you buy that like in store, like physically or online, it's probably gonna be closer right under $100. So stuff like that, trying to take advantage of those deals. As a collector, I'm a fan of like digital games and digital copies, but I understand the nature and the idea that you never know when major companies like Nintendo, for example, will stop supporting the ability to, download those games that you own. Like, obviously, with the eShop closing, you won't be able to buy anymore. You'll still be able to download for the foreseeable future, but there's nothing really in place for them to stop that accessibility down the road. So I get the idea behind having physical media as well, and that side of it, but there is obviously a major level of convenience behind having these digital copies. So yeah, with that, got the home lab relocated, got this workshop area kind of cleaned up a bit. Can't speak for the other half of the office or studio right now, but at least I put an initial dent into the list for today. Like I said, review the items that I posted earlier in the video and see your thoughts. Would love to kind of gauge your interest into what you want to see next or in the future. I'm sure I'll be adding to that list as I think of more stuff, but at least I have a baseline now of the projects that I'm wanting to tackle, and hopefully can upkeep this momentum. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little bit of different style of video here, and I look forward to knocking out some of these future projects down the road. Catch you in the next one.